Okay, so good afternoon and welcome to this week's Business Bites. This week I'm joined by the wonderful Susan Swarbrick, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Caritas Care, based here in Lancashire, but servicing quite a lot of the Northwest. Susan, I'm delighted you've joined us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I am super excited to grill you and find out all the juicy bits. We've been working with Caritas Care for some time, but every time I have a conversation with you guys, it amazes me how much more is under the cover. So fingers crossed today, we're going to dig a little bit of that out. But can I start by just digging on your background a little bit, Susan, about how you started in your career and how you got to be CEO at Caritas?
Okay, well, it goes back quite a long time. When I was at school and college, my main interest was catering, and so I did a couple of years at catering college way back when I was sort of 17, 18. And my first job was in a community home at the time for boys who had problems at home and various social problems, excluded from school, and they lived in residential care. I was cook at that school community home, and I was actually more interested in what was going on the other side of the kitchen than in the kitchen. So that's sort of sparked my interest in social work, really. From there, I worked in, got jobs in residential children's homes, worked in residential care for a number of years, and then decided that I wanted to do a little bit more. So went off and did my social work training, and then my first social work post was in Rochdale as a child protection social worker, going back a good number of years now.
Not an easy job.
Not an easy job. It was challenging, but also rewarding. But that's where my interest in adoption really came from, because I worked with a few children who I then went on to place for adoption. And it was a placement of a particular child with a family who'd been approved through Catholic Caring Services, which is Caritas Care under its former name.
Right.
I liked the way that they worked as a charity. So I saw a job advertised there and applied for it, was successful as I was appointed as an adoption social worker 23 years ago, and I've been with Caritas Care ever since. So
wow.
Catholic Caring Services.
The beautiful part of that is you genuinely worked up the ranks. So
I have, yes.
Probably not a member of staff you can't support in a very practical way of knowing the ropes before them.
That's right, yeah.
I think that massively helps from someone at senior level to have worked the way up. I did the best part of 20 years in education, but again, started at the bottom. In fact, I started as a student and worked my way up that way. But it gives you a really good understanding, not of just of the different roles, but how those departments interact or should interact and work.
Yeah. And I remember going back when I first started, we used to have to key in your employee number into the photocopier if you wanted to do a print in a photocopy. It was 0042, and I was the 42nd employee.
Wow.
But now we've got over 200 employees, so we've also grown and diversified in the work that we do, which is brilliant, really.
It is.
Yeah. So my work, although primarily in children's services, because I started as an adoption social worker, then I moved into the fostering service as a team leader. Then I was a service manager for adoption and fostering, then a director of children's services, and then in January this year took over the role of
wow. So it was only January this year?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, what a beautiful career to look back on, and it must feel incredibly rewarding, because you've managed to achieve quite a lot there. Actually, you've gone from your original passion of cooking and catering, and obviously that caring side has come through, and you've worked your way up throughout that organisation, got your qualifications, and to kind of end your career at that level, you're really privileged, and not only that, in a job you love, and a job that gives oodles of satisfaction. Challenges as well, I have no doubt, because it can be a horrendous area to work in. Some of the things, I mean, I've been a foster carer for the last 7 years, and some of the things you see in here, we shouldn't see in here, never mind children.
That's right.
And it's, having seen the system from both sides, for me, it's massively important that the right people are in those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
because I guess I've seen both people that kind of tick the boxes and people that really care. And it does make a huge difference to the young people, as well as the people that are putting out fostering. So if we're looking at challenges, Susan, you've kind of got a few areas really, because what's staffing like? Is it easy to find those 200 staff that you've got and bring them on board?
It varies really. I suppose in the different areas of work, it can be more challenging in some areas, because we not only have children's services, adoption and fostering, but we work with adults in the community as well. We've got some community projects, and some of the services it's a bit more challenging to recruit staff, but generally overall we are sort of well known in and around Preston, and I think people generally see us as a good employer, and people generally want to work for us. And I think also for some people, because we're a charity, there's that sense of there's some sort of altruism for people, and they want to give a little bit back, and they're in it because they see the value of what we do, and you know, our mission is about making a difference to people, those chances, choices and opportunities to live the best life they can, really. So I think people genuinely see that they have a role to play in helping people to do that. So people who are sort of drawn to the charitable sector will come to jobs with us, really. So, but staff recruitment is a challenge for everyone, really.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is.
We've got an amazing staff team, and generally people like me really come to the charity and they either stay for a long number of years, or they feel that no, this is not for me, and they choose to move on. But we don't have a high staff turnover. We do retain staff really well, and I think that says something about the ethos and values of the charity, really. So
definitely, I think it's one of the few areas where there's still a bit of a job for life there, isn't there?
Absolutely,
yeah. And I'm guessing the team gets so intertwined and get to know the families and the children so well. The relationships are much more long term. And I'm guessing it's also a very varied role, so you know, never a dull moment with things that you guys tackle every day.
That's right. It's very rewarding as well. I mean, just a little example. When I first came to Caritas Care as an adoption social worker, I placed a young girl with some adopters that I'd approved and assessed and approved and supported through the process, and she was only a baby when she was placed. She's now 21, and she's come back because she wants to do some work in tracing her birth history. And it's, you know, because I've worked with her when she was placed and I've maintained contact with her throughout these years, I think that's helped her to come back and do that, and I will do that work with her.
And that's wonderful that you're still there, because quite often people that are trying to go through the birth history, they struggle, particularly longer ago when the records weren't as open as they are now. Would I be right in saying then, Susan, I mean, there are, if I'm right with the numbers, about 2,500 children that need homes across the Northwest?
At any one time, and that's adoption or foster care, really. So it's, there are a lot of children waiting, and the challenge there is that there aren't enough people coming forward, or there's always a shortage of foster carers or adopters who you know, are available at any one time to provide a home and family for those children. So our challenge to try to get our name out there and, you know, recruit people who could think about fostering or adopting, because it's not for everyone, you know.
No, it isn't. And I have to admit, you know, when I did it, I mean, looking back, it's as equal as a challenge as it is as a reward.
Yes.
You know, the nights where they want the parents and they're upset or they're poorly, or, you know, in the early days when you're still a stranger to them and they're abusive, or, you know, and they're not all the same. I'm going off my own experiences, but, you know, when you watch a 7-year-old run to the ocean for the first time, there are things you can't put prices on, Susan.
That's right.
And there are the things that you take with you through the rest of life. Do you find that there is, and I guess what I'm trying to do now is anyone that might be listening or watching that has even thought about adoption, because I meet so many people, and as soon as I mention that I fostered or adopted, you know, I thought about that. I've thought about that lots of times, and I meet so many that do that.
Yeah.
But trying to get people to commit must be a real challenge for you.
It is, and I think, you know, you touched on it yourself, Lisa, there when you said it's a challenge as well as a pleasure, because it is a challenge, and you know, you're not the natural parents of these children, and so that emotional relationship takes time to build. We're there to support people through that process, and we wouldn't expect anyone to do that on their own.
No.
But I think the important thing is, if you've had those thoughts about, I wonder if I could do that, or what do I need to do, you know, I'm interested in adoption or fostering, what's the first step? The first step really is just to pick up the phone and have a conversation with us. You're not committed to anything at that stage. It is just about opening up that conversation and exploring a little bit more about your thoughts and feelings, your motivation to foster or adopt, and for you also to then understand a little bit about what we can offer to you in that process and that journey. And I don't like using that word journey, but it is a journey, because we are there with you at every step of the way. You're not there on your own, so we're there to celebrate the successes, enjoy the pleasure, but also we're beside you when the going gets tough as well, and we'll hold you while you hold the children, if you will.
Yeah, I have to say the support I've had has been incredible. From, you know, when we've needed counsellors, they've been here, you know, lots of different social workers with different tips and advice and training plans and just things that are massively helpful. And it's kind of like a pick and mix. You dip into the support you need. You don't have to take everything. And I guess the other thing to establish and share with people is that just by picking up that phone doesn't mean, as you said, you know, you're not committed, but it's not just fostering, it's short-term, long-term, respite, emergency, adoption. I mean, there are tons of different options. So if somebody's thinking, I can't do it long-term, but I could do here and there, that is still a conversation to be had.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you're right, a lot of our placements in fostering go from being short term and then they move into long term, because it works. You know, the relationship has really worked between that child that's been placed and the foster carers. But for some children, that's not what's needed. They need short term, moving them to get them ready to move on to adoption. Other children need just one weekend a month or a couple of weeks at a time away from either the birth family or the foster home. So we need respite carers. We need foster carers who could offer a placement to a parent and child, whilst work's done with them to assess whether or not that child can stay with them or needs to go into foster care or be adopted as an alternative option. So yeah, there are all sorts of opportunities to, you know, and ways in which you can foster, have children in your lives for a short time, a longer time, or if you want that child there permanently, then adoption is the other option as well. So it's just about picking the phone up and having that conversation, really, finding out a little bit about us, how we work, what's available to you, what options there are to foster or adopt, and then you're armed then with the information that you need to make that decision based on what's right for you and your family at any given time.
Definitely, and all those hybrid models, I guess once upon a time it would have been quite straightforward in terms of fostering or adoption, but I guess the services have been tailored because each child is different. Some do need short-term, long-term, some need specific types of care, some need specific locations or families, so you're right, it is that first step is picking up the phone, but you also do a ton of other things that reach out. So obviously on each of our share sites, which means you're visible in each of those counties and people can see you and access that service. They can come to your website, you've got email addresses, you've got contact people, you've got online chats and all sorts of things. And then of course, you've got your people out, but all of these information events, and we see these a lot because we're constantly sharing them, but you run a lot of these. How many?
At the moment, as lockdown started, we pre-COVID, all of our information events were face-to-face, so we used to invite people into our buildings and have face-to-face information events, but obviously we couldn't do that, so we took the brave step of going onto the virtual world, and now we run our information events you know, virtually and online, and we were running one a week initially during lockdown. We've had to move those to fortnightly at the moment, just because of the flow of people coming through. It's you know, we need time to be able to support those people through the process.
Yeah, and process. Yeah.
We're running them fortnightly at the moment. We had one this week, and we had 9 people attend that one. That was just for adoption.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is, if we run them, we run them as if we needed to run more than fortnightly, we would do, but we need to give people the opportunity to get the most out of those events. So, but why I think they've worked is that people who are working can come home at the end of the day. They don't need to go out again. They can sit in front of the screen. They can be anonymous, and that's okay. And they can join in the information event where we share all sorts of information about fostering adoption, the types of fostering and adoption that are available, the process that people would go through, the support that we offer, and how our relationship would work during that process. And then we share a lot about the children who are available. At the end of that, they could switch off and never have contact with us again, or they can then arrange for us to have further contact, and we will do a one meeting with people, and so we can look at their personal circumstances in a little bit more detail. So those weekly information events really work, and we advertise them across all the digital platforms, social media. They're advertised on Facebook, on our website. So if people are interested in joining one of those, all they need to do is click and register.
Yep.
We sent the details, and then join us on the day at the specific.
I think it's brilliant. I mean, I was surprised when it was weekly, but I still think fortnightly is enough. I mean, it's a lot more than other institutions are doing, and it's nice to see that it's regular enough that if somebody misses one, they can jump on the next one. Yeah. As you say, they can pop in anonymously. They don't have to turn the microphone or camera on.
That's right.
Sit and listen. And then I guess the most important thing, I mean, I remember in education, you know, I think a lot of people remember colleges as young people, but now there's just no upper age limit. And I used to always say to people, the challenge is getting through the door. Once they're here, they'll love it. But getting them here because of that predefined kind of stigma with colleges. And I guess it's the same with fostering and adoption, is getting them through the door and getting them to engage with those events and just hear you out.
You're absolutely right. And there are still a lot of myths out there about who can and can't foster or adopt. You know, if you're single, you can't. If you've rented accommodation, you can't. If you've got a health condition, you can't. We challenge those myths and say, yes, you can.
Yep.
Just because you're A, B, or C, doesn't mean to say that you can't do it. You can. But there are some certain circumstances that will prevent you from going forward.
Of course.
Or adopt, and that's for good reason. You know, this is all about protecting children, and we need to make sure people are the right sort of people to go forward, and that they're safe to look after someone else's child, basically. So, and
it's not that intrusive. I mean, it was one of the worries I had. You know, how intrusive am I going to have social workers in my house every week? And you know, what about the rest of the children? How much will it disrupt them? But actually, you know, he slotted into the family relatively well. He had his own social worker that met with him. I had mine for my support as well. Any of the other wraparound services we could tap into as and when we needed them. But as he was a family member anyway, it kind of just worked. Very different from my own, and I was on a learning curve as well. I won't lie to you, Susan. You know, you think that you kind of, you know, he'll fall in line with the other 4. No, because he's got his own quirky little ways, and they was raised very differently. And it's just about recognising that and accepting that, you know, in some cases they can be different. But it wasn't intrusive at all. You know, yes, of course, I had the medical and the financial checks, but other than that, we lived a relatively normal life and gave him opportunities that he might never have had.
That's right.
And that in itself is something I'll probably take with me forever. And, you know, it kind of ticks the box, feeds your soul, gives you a purpose, and
absolutely,
you know, you've done something good with it. So I didn't find the process all too intimidating at all, actually. In fact, if anything, I found it really supportive.
Well, that's generally what people say to us, that they enjoy the process, because we obviously want to know how people find it, because that is the myth, that it is intrusive, and we go digging into your past, and And yes, we do. You know, we're not going to make
you do, but
we have to
because your job is purely to safeguard that young person that's come from a place that wasn't safe in the first place. So you'd be doing yourselves an injustice if you didn't check that out. I mean,
I think we do it in a supportive way, and as I say, generally people comment on how they've enjoyed the process, and in fact, some of our adopters say parents, you know, people who go on to have birth children should go through something like this, because it's about I think people learn a lot about themselves, their relationship, how they function, you know, what the pressure points are, what might, you know, which buttons can be pressed,
where are the trigger points,
you know. So I think people enjoy the process. There's also that sense of there's a part of the preparation is there's an element of training, so we've got to share all sorts of information with prospective foster care,
GDPR and all the rest of it.
So it's that's interesting, and again we've adapted to delivering that online at the moment.
Brilliant.
And then the other side of it is the social side, that you get to part of a team, and you get to know people who you probably wouldn't have had contact with other than the fact that you share the process of going through assessment as a foster carer or adopter. So you build lifelong friendships that you probably wouldn't have built had you not been a foster carer or an adopter. So there are lots of benefits going through the process. But we don't make any apologies for the fact that we ask questions, and we need to understand you as people. But in us understanding you as people, we can then understand how we can support you better, and it just all contributes to stability of placements, which
of course, and that's the main thing, isn't it? Making sure that the young person is a good fit. No family is perfect. We've all got little skeletons in our closet.
Absolutely.
You know, some of us won't pass the finance or the medical or but it's about you understanding where that child is going and how capable that family is looking after their needs. So
and we're not looking for perfect, you know, we're not. We're looking for people who have lived a life and whose experiences have shaped them into the people that they are today, that's helped to develop some resilience and some strength of character that will help see them through the tough times, really. So we're not looking for perfect chocolate box families.
No, and I have to say, sharing with other foster carers was equally rewarding. Just, you know, the challenges are very different, aren't they? But there's a lot of sharing of best practice as well.
Absolutely,
and a lot of celebrating of those children. You know, there are annual events that kind of bring them all together and let them have those common factors. I just want to touch bases, and because fostering and adoption isn't on everything you guys do, you have diversified in a huge way, haven't you?
We have,
Share a little bit of that with me.
Well, alongside our children's services, back in, children's services is really why we exist as a charity. We are, you know, going back years, it's when babies were relinquished for adoption and they were placed with, because we're a Catholic agency formally, we're no longer, you know, solely a Catholic agency, but that's why we exist for those children. But in the 90s, we started to diversify and develop services for adults with learning difficulties and physical disabilities. So we provide daycare for those adults. We have supported living service where those adults live on their own in the community, but they need some support. We've got an advocacy service for adults with learning difficulties, so they do advocacy work, helping to, you know, spread the word about the needs of people with, you know, with a disability and how they communicate, how they educate us really about making life accessible when you've got a disability, either physical or learning. So we have that service. We have a hostel in Blackpool, a homeless hostel, so people who obviously have fallen on hard times and lost their homes. This is a sort of halfway house to get them back into their own accommodation. We have a project in Preston that is a prison resettlement project, so people who've spent time in custody, when they are then released from custody, we meet them at the gate, for want of a better description, and then help them to sort of become settled in the community again, you know, find them accommodations, help support them, you know, getting their benefits sorted.
Yeah.
They have the emotional support, and the aim being to stop them offending. Well, so that's our project in Preston. So yeah, we're not just children's services, and those adult and community services are vibrant places to be. You know, we support a lot of people through those services, and they are really worthwhile because those people deserve those chances to achieve life. And
there are just far too many individuals, Susan, that are lost. Like you say, when somebody comes out after spending time, you know, in prison or wherever, who do they turn to if those services aren't there? How challenging is it for you to raise funding to keep these services going?
Well, the ACE project, which is the prison resettlement project, that's lottery funded. So we've been really successful for a number of years now in securing lottery funding. We've just been awarded another grant for the next for 3 years. We're coming to the end of the first year. Well, we're halfway through the first year. Mm-hmm. That's the project that is the most vulnerable for funding. But the other ones, we sort of generate our own income by providing those services. So, and the homeless hostel, again, that's because people receive benefits. Mm. The benefits contribute to the care and you know.
Is that through direct payments and things like that? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And similarly with our adult learning disability services, because they're in receipt of benefits, direct payments, the health care that they need, that funds the work that we are able to provide to support people,
yeah.
You know, in those services. But yeah, because we're a charity, we obviously have to generate our own income and stuff. So again, it's not something that we do a lot of in terms of fundraising. We could do more,
yeah.
But yeah, we have to generate our own income.
Yeah.
Constant source of challenge.
Has that been challenged any more with COVID and the pandemic? Have you felt the pinch?
Yes and no. Yes, insofar as we've had to reduce our services considerably because of all the social distancing requirements that we're not able to support as many people on a day-to-day basis as we were pre-COVID. Yeah. But the local authority funding system has been really supportive in paying us as if we were still able to deliver those services at level pre-COVID, because they want the confidence that we will still be there when all of this is over, so that we can carry on providing those services. So if they've seen that if they support us now, we will still be there.
Yeah, wonderful that they've kept that coming through. And I know you're not stacking that up in the bank. I know it's being spent on all these alternative services of delivery online and trying to outreach to people virtually wherever you can. I mean, I absolutely take my hat off to you and the entire team of 200 over there, because you know there are far more than 200 children or young people or adults even that need your help. And you know, from a newborn baby through to, you know, an older adult, you are trying your best to service as many people as possible and put them in a better place. And I think far too often it's overlooked, Susan, the work that gets done. I'm delighted that you are treble sharers, because we can get those messages out across Lancashire, Manchester and Cumbria. It's a joy to see what you do and to share it. And now when anybody says to me, oh, I thought about fostering once, I tag them in the second they say it.
Right, well, yeah, thank you for that.
And we send a link to the local information event. It's fab to see those continued. You know, I understand that getting people through the door on the weekly ones must have been tough, but to keep running them every fortnight, no matter how many people attend that. And it is just about breaking down those barriers. Quite often the people that say, I've thought about it, they are worried about them pre-misconceptions and those old stigmas of what fostering and adoption is. We have to learn to look beyond that and look at the difference we make on a young person's life. You know, I only did 7 years, Susan, but I took somebody who was socially inept, couldn't probably read and write properly, challenged, expelled from 3 schools by the age of 7, which is just ridiculous, and that's because the system couldn't understand his frustrations. To take him on to pass his SAT tests, get to secondary school, join the cadets, have aspirations, and go on his first holiday, and you really can't put a price on that.
And it's the little things that we celebrate as well. So I mean, any achievement is worthy of celebration, even if it's just, for one. I remember one very recent story sort of being recounted to me, that a child in one of our placements was able to sleep in his bedroom at night without the light on.
Wow.
Massive achievement.
Yeah.
But then you've got others who have gone on to university, they've had really good GCSE results, and that's massive, and that's a great achievement as well. So just doesn't matter how small achievement, we want to be there to celebrate it with them, really. So
because for those young people, they're not small achievements, they're mountains.
No, that's right.
If somebody slept with the light on for that long, clearly there is a huge fear there.
Yeah,
so the fact that they've slept with it off means that fear has finally been overcome, and that is the cusp of what you're trying to do, not just place children in homes and families, but to make a difference, to make those people confident and part of society and able to be brave enough to go out and get to university and all the big stuff that they can do. But it starts with those small steps, and
of course it does.
Without the support of those families, it's not possible.
No, and it's what we sort of ask people to do. Fostering's hard, I'm not going to lie. It's it would be wrong of me to say it's a walk in the park. It's hard, as is adoption, but particularly in fostering, what we ask is that people take those children, young people, into their lives, love them as if they're their own, get them ready to move them on, and then say goodbye to them in a way that you're saying goodbye, but you're still there for them, because most of our foster carers maintain contact with the children that they've had placed with them. But it's a hard thing to do, to say, bring this child into your home, love them like they're your own, and then let them go.
I explained this to somebody the other day, and I said, so I have 5, one's fostered and 4 of my own. I said, and then, successfully we got him home to his mum, which is good, because that's the outcome you want, as heartbreaking as it is for us. And I said, it's like somebody coming along saying, oh, you've done a great job, can I have that one back? And you're like, no, take another one, I've done a good job with that one.
Yeah, that's right.
But that was the hardest thing when you got to put them back. But I guess what I tried to do is look at it from the perspective of that is a good job done, because not many get to go home. So I looked at it as a success. It is still sad. There's an element of finding yourself again after that. But I don't think I'd undo it for the world, Susan, even the tough times. I remember the first night he came, he needed clothes, and I went down to the local Asda and took him with me and said, we'll get pyjamas and a toothbrush and this and that and the other. And he ran off. I thought, oh my goodness, I've had him for an hour and I've lost him.
Lost him already.
I was traumatized, but he came back. I found him near the sweets and magazines, but for that split second, I was just, big adjustment, brilliant journey, challenging along the way, learned a lot, gave a lot, and took a lot from it. So if I can implore through this video with you, and thank you for being so honest and sharing with us the story of yourself and Caritas and all the fabulous stuff you do, but if we can get just one more family to pick up that phone, to come through, to agree to sign that paperwork, to take a child on, then job done, because every single one matters. I just want to touch briefly, and I have kind of wrapped up for us to go, but I have obviously fostering friends, and some of those have siblings, and I know that's a huge challenge to keep young people together. I mean, I'm one of 5, and I would have been devastated too. We went through a divorce when we were young, but we were stuck together, and that's what it did for us. How difficult are foster carers for siblings?
Difficult. Mainly people come forward thinking that they would want to offer a home for one child. But you're right, there are sibling groups out there, not only for needing foster placements, but for adoption as well. There are some sibling groups, brothers and sisters of 3 or 4. That's a big ask, and not everybody can do that. But for anyone who could offer a home, short-term, long-term, permanently, to a sibling group. That's the relationship that endures above all others. So if we can keep siblings together, then that's what we want to do. And we see so many sibling groups that are separated because there aren't the families there who can take a sibling group, and that is so sad. And even though those families are committed to maintaining contact between those children, it's not the same as growing up with a lived experience. So yeah, for anyone who could even think about taking a sibling group, then yeah, please contact us. Because
it is, because I guess it's hard enough for these children to be pulled out of the homes and to, you know, go with strangers or go into foster care or you know, all of those things they don't understand at that young age, and probably the only anchor they've got is the brother or the sister or whoever it is. So to pull that away as well is kind of, well, I know, like you say, people are dedicated to the children individually, but together they are so much stronger. It's the same ethos as Lancashire, which is, you know, together we're stronger.
Together you're stronger, yeah.
So, Susan, I cannot thank you enough. It's been an absolute joy to share some experiences with somebody who understands where I'm coming from, but also to hear about all the fabulous stuff you do and just how much you've diversified. I will ask anyone viewing or watching, if you are interested in fostering or adopting, if you are an adult that needs support, if you need any of the services that Caritas Care offer, you can find their own website or Caritas Care on any of our websites. Constant information events on our events pages and all over social media as well. Reach out to another person, tell someone else, just share it. That's our whole ethos, is sharing. Susan Swarbrick, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you, Lisa.